I do think that with a Labour government in the UK, things are getting a lot worse, a lot quicker.
So no matter how stupid the Conservatives are, the Labour Party can do worse.
Well, it's not just now about non-crime. We've had a lot of cases since the riots in the summer after the murder of those 3 children in Southport.
By that Christian Welshman.
The ethnically no, this is I know what you're doing there. You know, we've had people who wrote...
and the Al-Qaeda...
He had an Al-Qaeda training manual.
Which every Christian Welshman has that.
Standard Welsh practice to have that. But he... there were riots, there was anger, there was a lot of obvious justified anger. There were also some horrendous people opportunistically turning up from the far right to attack and destroy and defame. All of that is true. But the problem is we've had people who've, in anger, have tweeted things out that I do find objectionable, you know, things that are racist, things that are unpleasant. And there's, let me give you an example. There's one woman, Lucy Connolly, and she wrote out, I don't care anymore. We should burn down the hotels that they're in. We should just, you know, I don't care.
Yeah, I remember
Not pleasant.
Yeah.
31 months in prison. Said in anger, by the way. Deleted very quickly. Said in anger, deleted quickly. 31 months in prison. There've been a number of cases like that.
Yeah.
And one of the common factors is that all of the judges have said, we are setting an example. We're giving you the harshest jail term to set an example to others.
Yeah.
And
those were the court cases that were sped along so efficaciously.
And previous to that, Keir Starmer had said that he wanted judges to do this. So it's all, there's a weird...
sex offenders removed from their cells to make room for these women.
My problem with this is...
They were victims.
My problem with this is manifold. I mean, firstly, the draconianism of the jail terms is a problem in and of itself for language, for speech. I don't approve of the speech, but there is no evidence whatsoever that that tweet by that woman caused any violence in the real world. None whatsoever. And no one can tell you different. We've had decades of research into this. We know that that's not how it works. People don't tweet and then violence happens as a direct result. If you know, we know that that's not true.
Otherwise, we'd be knee deep in violence.
It's why in the US you have the Brandenburg test for incitement to violence, which would mean that, you know, that firstly it has to be there has to be an intention to cause violence, that it is likely to cause violence, and that there is imminent risk of violence. So none of these people currently languishing in prison cells in the UK for tweets meet anywhere near the threshold of the Brandenburg test. We don't have that. So the chilling effect that this has, not just on people who are saying nasty things, the chilling effect on people expressing themselves in any way. We've got a guy who's just been found guilty of stirring up hatred because of a Halloween costume that he wore. He dressed up as the Manchester bomber, which is sick and unpleasant. That's the point.
It's Halloween too.
It's Halloween.
You know, which is like when you do...
It's about horror.
Dress up in sick and unpleasant costumes.
There's a kind of joke in that. It's that you're trying to outgross everyone else. He's waiting the prison sentence. We don't know how long he's going to be in prison.
Whoa.
But why is someone...
Who was the comedian who got nailed for teaching his dog to do the Hitler salute?
I'm involved in that story.
Count
Dankula.
Dankula.
Yeah, Graham should tell this because he...
Okay.
You made it worse.
Well, these were the days just before I got cancelled. And I believed everything that was being told to me about the new right, you know, or the online right or whatever.
Which you are now an honorary member of, by the way.
So I understand. And this guy was doing these kind of videos, and he did one video where he got his dog, he had a pug.
It was his girlfriend's dog.
It was his girlfriend's dog.
Right, and he didn't like it, and he shouldn't have, because it was a pug.
Yes.
And so,
no, it's a lovely dog. I've met it.
So he secretly taught it to do a Hitler salute. And I, rather than seeing this as quite a funny gag to play on your girlfriend, saw it as hidden messages, anti-Semitism, all this sort of stuff.
Right.
He really was just messing about and having a joke. And
well, it's
so
not
I had
like
to
a
apologize.
pug is a testament to Hitler.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, seriously.
Well, actually, didn't you...
But I had to do one of my many apologies.
I don't want to drop you in. I don't want to drop you in it, but
didn't call it my apology tour.
Didn't you try and stop his crowdfunder from getting...
I did. Something for which I'll spend a few years in limbo.
Even better, by the way, for this conversation, I at the time wrote a satirical piece. I was writing this character called Jonathan Pye. I was the co-writer of this character, and we wrote this satirical piece mocking the court's decision, where the character, you know,
Oh, no.
and Graham attacked me for that
Oh,
online.
yes, I did.
Yeah, I think you called me alt-right or fascist.
Oh,
or
I'm so
something.
sorry.
No. I'm not saying it to embarrass you. I think it's quite a funny. It's a nice little connection we have. Back in the day before we were friends, I was a fascist.
But you know, I did that.
No, it's important to highlight these sorts of things, though, because you want to see where you're, just like I said, it took me like 6 months to trust you on X. You want to see, it's not like only those people are susceptible to this like mass hysteria. It's you got to watch and see where you're susceptible, and if you have been susceptible in some manner, you should admit it. Well, you know, at one point during the COVID epidemic, the so-called COVID epidemic, I got vaccinated twice. Now, in my defense, I was very ill at the time and wasn't really able to think, but I did get vaccinated. But I also said at the end of one podcast, and I would say in some ways, despite some inner prompting, that people should just get the damn vaccine, you know? And my thinking at the time was seriously, I was like, I'll take the shots. Here's the deal. I'll take the shots. You leave me the hell alone.
Sure.
And then I found out instantly that the deal was you take the shots and then you take 6 more and forget about being left alone. And that was the end of that as far as I was concerned. But still, I made a mistake. You know, I made a mistake. And I would say it was very difficult for me at that point to believe that the pharmaceutical companies had become so corrupt that you couldn't trust their vaccine policy.
Yeah.
You know, it was easier to think that it was the more conspiratorially minded, you know, alt-right types that were pushing this doctrine.
And saying something cures that cognitive dissonance, even briefly.
Yeah.
You get to turn it off just for a few seconds and think, oh, at least I made a decision.
Yeah.
Don't you find
yeah, right. There's that too.
All of this is suggestive of this idea that there is a real problem we have at the moment where there's an expectation of moral purity from all sides. I've seen a similar thing there, like where people either, you know, didn't understand what was going on during the pandemic and maybe supported lockdowns or etc. And they get piled on and attacked by these very sort of almost like an equivalent of the woke on the sort of lockdown skeptic side as well. I don't think any particular group is immune to this idea, this kind of expectation. Everyone must think the same way as me on every single point.
It's part of group identity, really.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's necessary for human beings to cooperate, to reach consensus that's almost universal on everything rapidly, right? Because otherwise we can't cooperate.
But something's changed, because I remember being at university, debating friends late into the night, drinking, rowing, but in a good-natured way. We didn't not be friends the next day because we fundamentally disagreed. We actually relished the fundamental disagreements, and they were part of the friendship. That's not possible now.
The net has enabled the reputation savaging psychopaths. So, you know, the female pattern of bullying, because there's a female pattern of antisocial personality, the female version isn't violence. The female version is reputation savaging.
Right.
And men can also partake in reputation savaging.
Of course.
If they do that in real life, they get into a fight. Women don't, because women won't fight physically. And so, but men will. But online, there's no consequences to reputation savaging whatsoever. In fact, it's probably amplified by the social media companies and the algorithms. And so I think not only can the reputation savagers aggregate, they can do so anonymously. They can levy accusations without any consequences whatsoever. And the consequences of that are rapid and devastating, partly because it's easy to write someone off.
Is it as mobilized as that, though? I don't think it's mobilized. I think it's more something has changed in the air.
No,
I think it's mobilized too. There are definitely aggregations of activists who are weaponizing the professional colleges, for example.
Yeah, sure. No, I think that is happening. But I think for a lot of people, they are being caught in a wave of societal change where this is just now the norm.
But can I say...
Go on, sorry, Graham. Yeah.
I think it's like... it's not just that it's weaponized, it's that the panopticon, or whatever you want to call it, is frictionless, right? There's a very funny Onion thing about arson at a party being disproved by the 60,000 photographs that were taken at it, you know?
Yes.
And everyone just has a different angle of a cigarette falling to the floor, you know, that was taken in the foreground or two. Yeah, and it's just because we, without realizing it, have become the apparatus of a police state. You know, but it's all just part of the fabric of our lives.